Prior to this, I used to work in DuPont.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I was in Celanese.
Uh-huh.
And some Japanese companies and other stuff as well. And so I was the director of strategy and marketing for a $2.6 billion packaging and industrial polymers business.
Okay.
I was also director of strategy for a $1 billion business in Celanese that takes wood pulp, converts it into the fibers and everything else used in cigarette filters, but also into plastics. And I was leading the efforts to revamp and restart that whole plastic side of things coming out of wood fiber.
Right.
That's actually a really interesting possibility right here, because it's wood fiber and vinegar combined with heat and everything. You probably know this really, really well.
Just for wood, wood pulp.
Okay, yeah, and so for example, companies like Celanese, they take wood pulp and they take acetic acid or vinegar, combine it with heat, pressure, everything else, and make a liquid version of that, and it converts into huge bales of fiber that are used to make cigarette butts. They're also used to make a lot of other different products that can be made into plastics as well.
Right.
And I was in charge of developing other alternative uses for that wood pulp. And so plastics was one of them. And we worked with a lot of major companies around the world to provide a sustainable and a good source of material to make plastics that weren't made from petrochemicals.
Wonderful.
And so it was very, very interesting to see how it worked out. And there's a lot of possibilities for it. And so hemp could be a replacement for that same fiber source, a replacement for that wood pulp. And that was Celanese alone. I probably shouldn't mention company names, but that company alone.
No, you can if you want. There's a company that he worked with that I've been working with that has produces now a hemp-based plastic pellet that works in a standard injection molding machine.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's the right density for them. They can just straight exchange plastic or chemical base to.
I've got a ton of information on that, and we've already developed something like that as well. It wasn't hemp; it was wood pulp, but it'd be very, very similar.
Yeah.
And we talked with very big major companies to use it, and that was just to give you an idea. That business did $1 billion a year in sales. Their bottom line profit margin, 50%. That is unheard of.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sorry. Say that again for those in the back that didn't hear you right.
There's a major company out there, multi-billion company. They take wood pulp, vinegar, acetic acid, and combine it and all of that. They use that and sell it to cigarette butt manufacturers and cigarette filter manufacturers, and to plastics and a few other applications. $1 billion a year in sales. 50% of that is their bottom line profit. That's not gross margin.
Yeah, of course, but still.
That's revenue minus your COGS, minus all your OPEX, and that's what goes to your shareholders' bottom line. Blow your mind,
right?
Of the profitability there. And that level of financial data is not available in they're a publicly traded company. You can't see that in their publicly their SEC documents, but it's absolutely true. Yeah, I was the director of.
I will take your word for it. Oh man.
And so
that's awesome.
Yeah, there's also, you can make them into micro pellets.
Yes.
And so basically you can encapsulate other materials, drugs or medicines or inks or whatever else, and you can make micro pellets out of these, and maybe even nano levels, and then use that as well, all from the same type of material.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very impressive. Very impressive. There's one of the big things for me is, so I came up with a bunch of ideas and inventions that were going to be based and manufactured, and the way to manufacture them is injection molding machines and I went at all that. And as I was going through that process of looking at it, I was looking at all the cost that was involved, and I was like, man, if I'm going to spend anywhere from $60,000 to $125,000 to get a mold made for my product, and then my only choices are to make that product out of like really crappy non-biodegradable plastics at the time, I was like, no, it's not going to work for me. Not only are my products really appeal to a market, my primary market for my products appeals to people who are into renewal, reuse, recycling, I'm a hipster, whatever. It is what it is. I grew up in Oregon at the right time.
Nice.
So it's one of those things where it's like, no. And secondly, I have children and I have a world that is falling apart, and it bothers me to no end. So I was like, I can't manufacture in good conscience anything that I've invented out of a product that is not going to be biodegradable, reusable, reducible, all those fun things.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, well, how do I solve that problem? I spent 3 days on the phone and I mean, war dialing people, just calling all day, 6 hours of just nonstop phone calls to find out that there was basically no real solution for me. Mm-hmm. There was companies that were working on products, and those products were bound by the technology at that time, and they weren't able to do the amount of detail I needed. They were like, in a few years. Okay. And even then, a lot of times I was running into situations where I felt like they were really just they weren't trying to fix a problem as much as they were trying to get a Band-Aid product in there. Like, oh yeah, we have a biodegradable one, but then that was never what we really talked about. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm only calling you about that.
They're side businesses for them. They're not their main focus.
Right, and it was such a side thing for them that I was always being put on the back burner. So then I started figuring, I'm like, okay, so what if I just started a company that manufactured these plastics, and I started looking into that. Whole Jiminy Christmas. It was just so far outside of my financial capability at the time, and not just that, like trying to get people excited about it was next to impossible.
Sure.
Again, because the mentality of the product, and we're talking 10 years ago now. Okay, so almost 14 years ago now.
Okay.
Sorry. Woo! Yeah, so there was a while ago. That process came in, and then as I started to work through that process, I started to realize, okay, let's say I do get one of these companies to either invest in me to do it or to jump on board and take this project on with me. What's my end game? Where's the downstream from it? How am I going to turn this into a profitability for them? If I can't just rely on my own products, because what if my products fail? What if their market's not strong enough to carry them right now? And there's a lot of as a smart, industrious businessman, you got to think down the road about that thing.
Sure.
You have to be able to monetize this in some kind of a stream where the whoever's involved is going to make money back and make a return.
Right.
That brought me to a situation where it's like, well, what's missing is the foundational infrastructure for this. There's a foundational infrastructure for milk, for example. When COVID hit and you couldn't go, milk dairies were not being able to sell their milk to the stores. Yeah. Customers were able to just shift gears and come straight to them, and they kept that going because there's people that still needed milk for their coffee shop, milk for their food that they're cooking that were essential businesses. It's an essential ingredient. So there's enough of an infrastructure that we could easily circumnavigate that in a crisis. There is none of that for hemp products that are outside of flower and extract-based products. So that's a very small portion of that market.
Yeah.
So now, not only am I campaigning to educate and get everybody on the same page so that we understand the differences between industrial hemp extracts and industrial hemp medicine, and how those and what those mean to each other. That also is getting businesses that are already producing products that are magnificent products, but are not available to, like, there was a couple of companies that I talked to that had a product that was exactly what I wanted. They're like, no, we can't release that yet. That's not available for the marketplace. And it was because of either patenting reasons. One of them straight up told me it's because they couldnn't patent it. Like so you developed a technology that's a fantastic save for everything, and we could be using it, but you won't let it go because you don't feel like you can make enough money off of it. And I was
common for the larger corporate sort of world.
Oh, 100%.
And so, like the business that I was in before, similar sort of thing. And so, we're doing $1 billion of business in the existing end uses. But, if we're only talking 10, 50, 100, 20, something like that, $1 million a year in revenue, it doesn't even hit the radar. They don't care about it if it's only $50 million a year. They don't care. It's not a big deal.
It's not enough. Yeah.
And so, exactly. And the margins are only 20% EBITDA margins instead of 50%.
Right. You're just like,
it's like, well, why?
Have you done the math on this?
We've already sold everything we possibly can, so why would we, sell this other?
I'm a firm believer in
and they're not good at working with small outside groups or individuals or other companies as well.
Yeah.
They have the belief that we do everything in house and we know what we do and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, 100%. And that's not a bad. And then don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to beat up corporate America for having. There was a time and a reason why they had those things. As a society, as a culture, globally now, we need to shift gears in certain places, and that's one of those things where we need to shift gears in. I can sit here and rattle on about company after company after company that when they take those little chances, in the past they have had amazing, greatly profitable results. There's a million of those stories down the line of products that were manufactured because some tenacious dude that just wouldn't give up was pounding on somebody's door and somebody just gave him a shot and they made something that changed the way that we look at our world today as well as it functions. Okay, all the fires in California and all that stuff, all those fires, that's a disaster. But here's the thing, that burnt earth is perfect growing for hemp, and what the hemp will do to that earth is clean it, reset it, and make it viable for it to regrow itself in the season. And we can literally just toss seed on that, let it grow naturally. Don't fuck with it, just let it do its thing. We tend it only enough to make it as viable as possible. And then we just grew all the hempcrete we need to rebuild the houses. And hempcrete is fire retardant.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know what I mean?
I'm working with a group up in Arkansas that had set up a deal with the state. And they are using an old hog farm that was deemed, I forgot the right terminology for it, but it's considered hazardous.
Because of all the toxins from the pig shit.
And so they're actually working with the state to grow hemp on it to clean it up. And they used our products as well, all the biologicals and all that to try to get all that built back up and the nutrients and all. They got 24% larger plants and they got 61% higher yield. Side by side, 1 acre of ours and the other 10 or 12 or whatever acres of the everything else, and it's pretty interesting what they're doing though. It's like you said, it's cleaning up the land. There's a lot of good possibilities and stuff like that.
When you look at this, like I've been driving all across Texas and I'm looking at massive fields and just oil derricks going. Here's the thing. Most people don't realize that every year or whatever I can't remember what their scheduling is on it, but the majority of oil farmers pay a tax. They just pay it, and it's a fee for polluting the planet. They just pay it like it's just part of the cost of doing business. You could evaporate that fee by just planting wild industrial hemp on your land, and all that hemp is really doing is just there to clean up the poisons and toxins that are getting spilled into the soil.
Interesting.
You don't care about the flour on it. You don't care about turning it into anything that's going to go into a human body. You use it as a cleaning tool. But here's the thing: once it's done, now we have all this biomass that we can start using to start manufacturing hemp-based plastics, biodiesel, and you want to talk about you're killing two birds with one stone. One, two, if you're in the oil industry, you better realize that no matter what you do at this point, your industry is dying. It is never going to be what it was. And while you're spending millions and billions of dollars fighting the hemp industry and the alternative energy industry, you could be patenting all of the products and all of the patents for all of the plastics and all of the other things by growing this product yourself, by turning that money that you're fighting us with into money you're investing in your future, and guarantee, because here's the thing, there are certain plastics that we have designed that we need. There is a reason for a plastic that lasts forever. There is not a need for every plastic to last forever. We need to have a balance to that. There's the right tool and the right product for the right job. That's plain and simple. We've figured out a lot about plastics. Let's start going into the biodegradable plastics and earth-friendly plastics we can manufacture faster, quicker, and cheaper. And if you're an oil guy, you don't have any of the patents on the plastics. Dow does. Petrochemical does. They have those patents. They're the ones that are making billions of dollars every year off of everybody that uses their plastics. Whereas you could not only be the manufacturer, but you could also be the one patenting those and moving forward into the next evolution of our power of consumption in not just a smart way, but in a business savvy way. There's a lot more money to be made in innovation than there is in fighting the change. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. So prior to this, I used to work in various leadership roles in various other companies. Started off in companies in Japan, then studied physics and then Asian studies and Japanese and for my undergrad. Got an MBA at a top tier university, then went to DuPont and was promoted in various different roles there, running one of the business units. I was able to grow that from 40 million a year to 70 million a year and put a business plan in place to get it to 340 million a year. Then director of strategy for $1 billion business unit there, then director of strategy and marketing for the $2.6 billion packaging and industrial polymers business there, which was all the polymers that go into your like the windshield of your car, all your food packaging, and then also everything that goes into all the polymers and everything that go into solar panels and that whole business.
Wonderful.
And then moved to Celanese here. They recruited me and brought me here. Same type of roles there, running a business unit, strategy, marketing, all those different types of roles.
Wonderful.
And then 2014 was asked to become the president of a company that made a product for the oil and gas industry, the drilling industry. So it's an anti-seize lubricant. So it's basically a grease that's got powdered copper, powdered lead, powdered PTFE, all those different types of things in it. And it's used, and you put it on the threads of your pipe, and you're putting 25, 40, 50,000 foot-pounds of torque on those. And so if you don't have that on there, the metal will melt into each other and you won't be able to take them back apart ever again.
Correct.
And so I was the president of that company, was able to improve their profitability significantly. And then I kept thinking back, I was like, all right, I've been working in polymers and chemicals and this grease for the oil and gas industry and everything else, and I've been doing it for everybody else all the time and making them a crazy amount of money. Why am I not doing this for myself? I make good money. I mean, it's a great salary and everything, but at the same time, why am I not doing this for myself? And so I started searching for companies to buy. And during my search for companies to buy, I found a few. I was looking for B2B type of companies in the industrial sort of space, ones that had the chance for branding opportunities or cross-selling opportunities, ones that had room for improvement for growth. Found a few different ones. TerraBiotics is one that I did end up buying. It was much, much, much smaller than I had originally planned on as a target to buy.
Okay.
But it had some really good attributes. And then there's a couple other ones that were much larger that I was looking at that didn't go through. So TerraBiotics started back in 2003. The individual who started it was great at product development. He was one of the first folks and interacted a lot with I forgot the name, Elaine something that worked that developed the whole concept of the soil food web.
Okay.
And worked a lot with her and developed the line of organic fertilizers and nutrients that combine not only the NPK sort of concepts, but also all the micronutrients and trace elements and all that. But on top of that, more importantly, all the soil biology and stuff like that combined as well. And so it's tailored to each stage of growth for the plant, and so it seemed really, really interesting. My kids are a little bit older and grown up, and they're like, Dad, why are you always doing all this stuff that's bad for the world? You should be doing something that's good for the world, and so they really liked it, and so they were pushing me, and so the previous owner was having some health issues and whatnot. Made great products, didn't market it very much, and so I took a gamble on it and got it. And so that's how I got into this.
So let me just ask you again, and to clarify with this, out of all the companies you were looking at, you said that you chose Terra even though it was way smaller. Why did you choose it being so much smaller than the other ones you were looking at?
That's a great question. And so some of the reasons why I chose TerraBiotics to buy was because of it had a great line of products that worked very, very well and had great reviews from customers. It had some uniqueness about it that allowed for opportunities for growth.
Okay.
And because of the environmental aspect as well, the organic side of things, my kids were pushing me to, saying it's important to do something that's good for the world.
Beautiful, beautiful. How long after you bought TerraBiotics did you branch off into the cannabis industry?
So I bought TerraBiotics in May of 2019, and spent the first half a year or so, basically trying to learn the industry and get to know people and get to know how the products work and things like that. And then early this year, we had customers in the past that were in the cannabis industry.
Okay.
And historical ones, but it wasn't an area of focus for the previous owners.
Correct.
And early this year, I started exploring that a little bit farther and pushing it harder and getting some test plots done, more test plots done, and more evaluation work done and things like that and stuff. And so this year we've been pushing it much more.
Oh, fantastic. Since the big push, biggest lesson, like what have you learned about the cannabis industry that was very surprising to you that you didn't expect?
Interesting. That's a good question. I hadn't really thought about that one before. There's probably several different factors that stood out. One is that it's a growing industry with a lot of change as we just continually changing. And so there's folks that are getting into the industry that have never grown before, and they aren't aware of best practices. And there's other guys that are out there that have been in the industry forever who think they know everything. And so there's a wide gamut. And but I think there's still a lot of room for improvement, a lot of room for possibilities going forward as well.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. As somebody that's in your industry, what is one of the biggest miscommunications or falsehoods that you see from customers, your customers in your industry? What is it that they don't understand that's really hard for you to necessarily educate them on?
I think there's probably a couple different aspects there. One is, what's the difference between using a chemical-based fertilizer system on your plants versus using an organic? And so what are the benefits for that? The pros and cons. And when you're using the chemical fertilizers and you're just focused on NPK only, basically you're giving the plant a 5-hour energy shot. And that's what it is. And you're giving them one of those little things you get from the gas station to keep yourself awake late at night when you're driving or whatnot. You're just giving a quick little boost. When you focus on the soil and when you focus on the root system, which is the foundation for the plant, then you're providing the entire set of all the different nutrients and the vitamins and everything that the plant needs to be able to grow healthy, positively, with good results, and not just based off of a quick boost of energy.
Right. So instead of your 5-hour energy, you're sitting down and having a well-balanced, well-thought-out, balanced meal over the course of 6 weeks.
So it's going to take time. But at the same time, though, your plant's stronger. It's got better cell wall structure. It's got better energy transfer opportunities throughout the plant. And boom.
I have a few friends that are in the fitness industry, and that's, make no mistake, I'll tell you, they say that you're going to get more energy over the longevity of your day or the longevity of your life by having a proper, balanced nutritional diet than eating some pills or some vitamin packs and taking that 5-hour energy, right?
Yeah, absolutely right.
Absolutely. Okay.
And so there's the soil biology. I mean, sure, you can throw these nitrogen and phosphates and potassium in there, and people love CalMag. And calcium and magnesium does have important factors, but there are also other things.
Yes.
And but people forget about when your roots, they interact with fungi, they connect with the fungi, mycorrhizae and other types of fungi and whatnot. And that allows them to absorb nutrients that they wouldn't otherwise be able to. It expands the root system reach by about 10 times. There's also other fungi that are there that are used to fight off pathogens and disease and pests that otherwise they wouldn't be there and be able to do. And then the bacteria are in there to break down the minerals into a form that's absorbable by the plant and by that root system. There's beneficial nematodes and pathogenic nematodes. There's chemoautotrophs. There's all sorts of different biology that's in the soil and around your roots that all work together. And if you only focus on the NPK alone, it helps. But 60% of that's going to be wasted. But if you work on that entire soil food webing and the entire sort of micro ecosystem there, they work together. the bacteria break things down. The fungi and everything else help connect it and pull it into the root system. The root system then goes, and provides it to the plant. And it's just, it works together in a whole network.
Fantastic. The dew soil, right?
Yeah, sure.
How do you guys? How does TerraBiotics set it themselves apart, and what do you focus on in your product that you feel that maybe other companies don't?
Yeah, good question. So, there's a lot of good companies out there, and when you look at potting soils and the organic nutrients for growing all different types of plants, the organic nutrient side is about a $1.8 billion industry in North America, this year. It's highly fragmented. There's tons of companies that make products out there. Some of them are very good. Some of them are not. Some of the differences. A lot of the companies will focus on the NPK portion of it only, or the micronutrient portion of it only, or the biologicals portion of it only.
Okay.
And we try to provide that entire solution altogether.
Okay.
And while we do have those available one by one, we also provide it together in combined package.
Okay.
That's tailored for the plant. Two, it's a water soluble powder that keeps the microbes and the biology alive longer than putting it into a liquid. Also, being in a powder, it's much easier to ship around the country.
Yes.
And so I think that we see we've done a lot of research with a lot of PhD scientists and experts, agronomists, and everything else to develop and decide which biology and which nutrients to put into the formulas, and we see great results from them. There's a group that did a test grow here in Arkansas recently. They did a very controlled grow, 1 acre with our products on it, and got 24% larger plants, healthier, less problems with pathogens and moss and everything, mold, and everything else. And we're able to get 61% higher yield.
Wonderful.
On dry weight.
On dry weight. That's beautiful.